there, I've got a book review for you today. This time it's Far from the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy. My relationship with Thomas Hardy is in a complicated transitional phase. I had to read The Mayor of Casterbridge as a teen, and I said, it's well written, but so depressing, and therefore I decided I didn't like it. A couple years later, I picked up Tess of the D'Urbervilles, figuring I wouldn't be as bothered by how miserable it was because I was already so familiar with the story. But I got less than halfway through before I said, it's well written, but so depressing, and I put it aside. I must have gained some maturity or appreciation or something in the next couple years, because in 2013, with renewed determination, I picked Tess up where I left off and powered through to the end, at which point I said, it's depressing, but so well written, and I was content. Now, Far from the Madding Crowd is my third Thomas Hardy venture, and I can say this one gives double the satisfaction in being both well written and having a happy ending. It's a story published in 1874 about a beautiful independent young woman named Bathsheba Everdeen who inherits a farm, and her relationships with three very different suitors, the farmer Boldwood, Sergeant Troy, and the shepherd Gabriel Oak. Bathsheba is not an easy character to judge. She's strong, clever, and competent, but she's so vain, kind of a snob, and she's guilty of doing a couple pretty stupid things. About halfway through, after I'd yelled, Bathsheba, no! What are you doing? Stop! a couple times to no avail, I got to the point where I started to think, she's hit bottom, right? Things are going to start looking up for her now, right? Ha! No, it's just time for her to start reaping the consequences of her mistakes in true, miserable Thomas Hardy fashion. Let's talk about Thomas Hardy. He nails description. There's at least one line in every chapter that you want to read over and let sink in. He chooses words for their sound as much as for their meaning, which creates this delightful poetic effect without the labor of reading poetry. The woman who owns the old bookshop that I bought this from was so happy to see I was getting it. She told me she'd reread it over and over and enthused about the way Hardy always describes the weather. She's right, the weather and the seasonal changes in his unique pastoral setting are handled masterfully, and I would add that the amazing thunderstorm in Chapter 37 and the creepy swamp in Chapter 44 are two of the most vivid scenery descriptions I've read in a while. But Hardy is a wealth of wisdom, too, with thought-provoking insights into human nature, love, and the different ways men and women feel and express emotion. He might come across to some as critical of women, commenting on our occasional contradictory behavior, but I don't think Hardy's tone is judgmental. His attitude is more befuddled and amused than condemnatory, and he's equally critical of the men, pointing out their inconsistencies and the way romantic emotions can subdue and overpower even the most rational mind. About those men, Sergeant Troy is a dynamic character. I'd say the most fascinating in the story if it weren't for Farmer Boldwood. Part of me wanted to root for Boldwood because he's got that whole angsty, unrequited love thing going on. But this book's got two cases of unrequited love, which you can't help comparing, and in the three-way suitor matchup, though steadfast and reliable Gabriel Oak might not seem quite as thrilling, Hardy shows that exciting and intense may not be the most desirable qualities. I knew beforehand who ends up together, but amazingly, I didn't know how. And this was one of those stories where over and over again you're just like, I honestly have no idea how these two people are going to end up a couple. But it happens, and it's totally worth the struggle and suffering. For me, the end of the second-to-last chapter was one of the best parts, where Hardy defines his idea of real love and knocks down the lesser feelings that call themselves love, saying that in comparison to real love, they have the evanescence of steam. bam, excellent ending, I loved it. Well, it's not really the ending because there's another chapter, but for all intents and purposes, it is the ending, and it was great. I'd like to mention, as a side note, that this book has comic relief, which I did not expect, mostly involving the men who work on Bathsheba's farm, who ramble on, get off topic, and drive Gabriel Oak crazy. These moments are fun, one of them made me laugh really hard, and they make for a nice break, while not being so ridiculous as to mix badly with the story's more tragic moments. Overall, Hardy seems a lot more generous in this book. Nicer to his protagonists, eventually, and nicer to his reader, for which I am grateful. So those are some thoughts on Far From the Madding Crowd. I'm excited to see the film adaptations. I haven't seen any of them before, and I'm really looking forward to all of them for different reasons. I might review them separately as I go, or all at once after I've seen them. Depends on how much I have to say, which will probably be a lot, so I'll probably review them separately. So I definitely recommend this book, especially if you like classics, classic romances, character-driven novels, and if you've already read it, I'd love to know what you think, so feel free to leave a comment, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching! Bye!